Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvarai. Amen. Okay, good morning, Chevra. What a privilege to jump back in and to continue our journey through Sefer Likutei with Torah and Vav. Today's shir is sponsored anonymously with Chus Ragafayvel Ben Bluma Nucha Bas Sarah Esther Rivka Bas Nucha Yichil Bas Nucha and Chus their new baby girl Fayga Bas Nucha. What a beautiful name, like Rabbi Nachman's mother. They should see tremendous nachas. And always remember that Fayga is Rosh Tevis Agan Siyar Freilach. So by Ezras Hashem, this precious new baby girl should be full of joy all the time, the whole entire year, for all of her years, Lange Yarin and Bezinjur and Svansig by Ezras Hashem. Also by Zeb Klein Nishmas, his parents, Rivka Marda Bas Simcha Yaakov and Ishayo. Also for shidduchim for Yehudis, Adina Bas Elisheva Rochel, Dovid ben Kayla, Yonatan, Shimon, Hadassah, Ronit, Netanel ben Meechal, Mahnaz, Dovid ben Yael, Noach, Avraham ben Raizel, Zeb ben Beniynadel, and all the singles of Klal Yisrael. Also dedicated anonymously to Nishmas Esther Bas Blanca, Zchon of Rochel, like her namesake, who we'll be learning about today, an exemplar of true royalty. Also dedicated as a schus for Shleima for Chaim Yehoshua and Chaim Miriam. Also sponsored anonymously the schus Chaim, the Hiligat Tzaddik Chaim ben Perel and his wife Pesel Bas Bluma Perel and their children to be Zeichel HaHamshich Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. Amen, amen, and to be in Eretz Yisrael, the car of Mamish at the right time, the Ezras Hashem. Okay, so we jump back in. Very grateful for all the sponsorships and ready to continue the Siyata Deshmaya with Torah and Vav. So let's just do a quick recap. Again, we were learning about using our Malchus to be able to impact positively L'Shem Shemayim. That's the Bechina of Mordechai. Mardrar. We need to draw Richas Yamim into our Malchus. How do we do that? By connecting to the Torah Kedosha, in which case we're able to bring down the R of Chesed down into the Gvulim of Gvura, and then ultimately to produce Tiferes by integrating the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Chai HaChaim, to bring that down into our own lives and to integrate it in a healthy way, in a way of Kalim. And then yesterday we started speaking about the two Hastarahs. And we learned that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be hidden from a person in Hastarah Achas, which is the Bechina of Avraham Nasaba Keheter. When a person who has accustomed themselves to a particular Averis, that can become Keheter. But that's still only one Hastarah because at least they know what's going on. They know that it's Keheter. They know that for them, they've lost their sensitivity toward that. But at least they know it's Keheter. Doesn't mean mamish, they don't care about it at all. They're fretting and they're worried and they're disappointed over the fact that for them, this particular Isser in the Torah has had its Tzirufei Oisias swapped around, that instead of saying what it says, for this person, it's become something else, right? And they feel broken about that, and they feel, so at least HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hidden from them, but at least they know that He's hidden. It's going to be easier for that person to begin to dig their way back and to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu. However, there is an instance and a situation that a person can find themselves in where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hidden Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, where the hiddenness is itself concealed. And in that sense, a person doesn't think at all that there's anything wrong with the way that they're living, and they are walking b'mishar, gomer, right, thinking that everything is totally okay. They don't really know that anything is wrong. Nidnud iser, akol yasher ve'enav, like the Rebbe told us yesterday. That's the aspect of Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, right? And that's the right way to read it. Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, where the Hastarah is itself hidden, in which case it appears to the person that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealed in their lives, and they don't make any effort to try to change, because what should they change? Everything's already okay. What these people need is the realization that even where they are, that they think that they're so incredibly distant, that, or they don't think they're so incredibly distant, they don't think anything, they don't think at all. They need to be introduced to the reality that even within the Hastarah, Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, Bevadai Gam Sham, we have the word Melubash Hashem Yisbarach. In that place, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Melubash. We said HaKadosh Baruch Hu is wearing it like a levush, right? It isn't simply Nimsa, that like somewhere HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. No, it's mamish, it's form-fitting, Kiviyachal, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is showing up in not showing up. That itself is part and parcel of their spiritual journey. And if they're zoicha, as we're going to see, they can turn that into Torah itself. Right? They need to be aware of the way in which, from a certain bechina, mesuyamah, in a certain way, The truth is that everything in their life is proceeding according to plan. They've learned lessons. They're able to course correct. They're able to put gedarim, right? They're able to know what they don't want to do because they've been there. They're able to thereby reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence in a much deeper, darker place than most other people ever will have the privilege, I say privilege or opportunity to do, because they were chosen by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be sent into this place because that's where they are. So what are you going to say now? The whole thing was a big mistake? HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows exactly what he's doing. If in this moment a person can turn themselves around, then they're able to free those nitzitzit to kedusha. However, like we said, this message needs to be delivered. This is what we said at the end of yesterday's shir. This message needs to be delivered by a person whose malchus, because he's coming to impact someone else, is saturated with the ar of the arichas yamim that is a result of a karaboy kol hayamim, where he's bringing the arichas yamim, the man yarich yamim, into his malchus al mamlachtai by virtue of kol hayamim. He's bringing the ar of the Torah Kedusha into midas, right, into integrated vessels. Like we said at the very end of yesterday's year, so this is an incredibly important point, is that if all you have is arichas yamim, all you have is arichas, you have yarich, but you don't have the yamim, you have not brought that down into vikara by kol hayamim. So then, on the contrary, the messaging that you'll give such a person is to say, you're already okay. And that belies and prevents the person from being able to take the necessary steps to extricate themselves from the situation that they're in, because if all we provide is acceptance without any kind of impetus for growth, so then you might make the person feel very good, but you'll also probably keep them trapped in what they're stuck in. And we don't want that, because the person doesn't want that, even though, you know, it might seem like the most compassionate thing you can do is just to preserve the person's identity and say, you know, you're okay, right? Which on one level sounds very beautiful. That needs to be counterbalanced by both, right? You're okay, right? So there's no guilt or shame or anything like that, and you take away all that bad stuff. But on the other hand, you're also in a situation which is not pleasant, right? Forget about klapei shvat for you yourself. So you want to grow, you want to change, right? Certainly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees what you can be. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees how much health you can be living with. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees how beautiful life can be when you're living in a healthy way. So you want to help the person grow. But it's this very fine counterbalance. And the person who is able to deliver this message in an appropriate and healthy and nuanced way is himself a person who brings together in his own life these two aspects. He has the ar, let's call that for now, b'bechinas baki be-shoiv, right? So he has the aspect of hineka, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's already with me. But on the other hand, because he has Kayla, he's anchored in Ratzo, both. When he's anchored in Ratzo, so then he has that. But like we learned in Torah Vav, it's all one thing. You can't have the Baki Baratza without the Baki B'Shayv. You can't have Baki B'Shayv without Baki Baratza. In Torah Zion and Tinyana, some of the Chaver we're learning it. Over there it's Bechinas Ben and Talmud, right? You need both, right? You need both together. And that's what we had finished with yesterday. Okay? So let's jump back in. And says the Hidagareba V'afilu. I believe that's where we're up to. V'afilu. So we're a little bit below halfway through the column on the right-hand side on page Samach Hey Amud Beis. Says the Rebbe's Chusyagan Alina Val Kol Yisrael Amin Va'amin. What a privilege to learn his words with you. Mamish a privilege. Gan Eden Mamish. Says the Rebbe, V'afilu bas nehastara shebesoich ha'astara nasa Torah. For such a person who's anchored in the Torah in such a way that Laman Yarich Yamim Al Mamlachta, he's drawing Arichas Yamim into his Malchus on account of his devotion to Ritzaynenu Lasais Ritzaynecha, and all he wants is to see everybody living in accordance with the Kadosh Baruch Hu's will, because he knows as a compassionate person that really be'etzem everybody's will is to do Hashem's will. Like the Gemara says in Brachas, Ritzaynenu Lasais Ritzaynecha Ella Shesa'ar Shebi'isa Ma'akev. So the etzem, it's not just that Hashem wants this from us, we want it from us, because Hashem only wants it from us because it's our best life. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu does it, it's not Stam imposing things on us. Hashem created the world, He knows what's best for us. So that means be'etzem be'pnimius on the deepest subconscious level, every single yid. Hakol chafetzim l'eretz Hashemach, like we say in Yom Kippur liturgy. Every Jew wants to do HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will. So, be'emes, from all of the Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, this individual that we just learned about will be able to demonstrate to people that Nasa Torah, there's messaging there, there's Hayra'ah there, there's guidance there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is speaking to you by not speaking to you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing Himself to you by concealing Himself from you. This is one of the ways that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals Himself. There is the revelation of Kav, Nachon, but prior to that, there is the revelation of Chol HaPamay. That's also a message. That's also a lesson. Rak machma shaloi hayodim sha'Hashem yisbarach nister sham because the person didn't know that it's possible for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be hidden there, and that's a very interesting move that he's making, right? Because Nister means hidden away, right? Over here he means to say, no, that Hashem is present, but he's using the same word Nister. And that's exactly the point. Because this person didn't realize that when we say Hashem is hidden, okay, he's hidden. But there's a difference between saying Hashem is hidden away and saying Hashem is hidden in. It means two completely different things. On the one hand, hidden away means he's fundamentally hidden, you can't find him. Hidden there means lehepech. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hiding there. He's there. He's mamish there. We're using the word hiding to demonstrate his proximity, not his distance. That's why we kept on saying melubash, right? He's not hidden, like we said, a few football fields away. He's there. He's hidden in a form-fitting, shape-fitting way because mamish, he's present right there. That's what it means. That's where he is. Because the person didn't know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he knew Hashem is Nister, gesund und stark, but he didn't know Hashem is Nister Sham, or he was Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, so he didn't know Hashem was hidden Meechal, and now he learns that not only is HaKadosh Baruch Hu hidden away in his life, but Hashem is hidden Sham. Hashem is Mamish Bevada Gam Sham Melubash Hashem Yisbarach. This itself is the aspect of Hastarahs. Realizing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. If you don't realize Hashem is there, so then Hashem is hidden from you. Meaning, the Rebbe is trying to say it's all subjective. The Hastarah is that a person doesn't know that there's a Hastarah. That's why there's a Hastarah. If you know that there's a Hastarah, Mameli, you undid the Hastarahs because the Hastarah was only subjective. Now you know that he's hidden, so then he's not hidden because you know. It's all subjective. It's in the mind. Because Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. Right? Les asar panim minei. So this person needed to be guided into the realization that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Nister. This is already an idea you find in the Baal Shem HaKadosh. Immediately when the person knows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Nister there, from this, that the person becomes aware that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hidden, all of a sudden, this itself transforms the Hastarah that was in the Hastarah. V'nasa mimenu das. And from this experience comes consciousness. V'huchsara ha-Torah shenister kan ladas. And the hidden Torah that was hidden here in the aspect of kivan sha'avar v'shana nasa b'keheter, like we learned yesterday, the transformation and the corruption of the oisios of Torah Sheb'Ksav, Torah Sheb'Alpeh, that themselves became a different siruf to say not aser but mutar hoyla oimrim latoiv v'rav l'ratoiv. All of a sudden, that Torah reconfigures back into its original source, and we have das. And all of a sudden, like we said, when there's only one Hastarah, so then one Hastarah, Kadosh Baruch Hu, is not so hidden because that's part of the human experience. It means that gives us an opportunity to yearn. Like Reb Nosson writes to Likutei, the whole creation of the world, says Reb Nosson, was for the purpose of creating distance for us to then be able to generate ratzon, yearning, striving toward an ideal. When all you have is Ein Sofiyut, there's no striving because everything is already there. Like the Leshem writes, Yud-Hoveh should be understood as Yud-Hoveh, which means the perpetual present. That's Yud-Hoveh. Yud, and then the Hebrew word Hoveh. That's what Hashem is. On the level of Yud-Hoveh, there's nothing. There's just here. There's no there. There implies distance, right? But if all you have is infinite presence, so then there's nowhere to go. There's no movement. Right? Hashem created the world on the highest level in the Svar Makdoshim for Shashua. Right? Shashua. A push and a pull. Shashua is a delight that's doubled over. Right? It's kafel and mukupal. That's the inyan of what's called the Shana Hayrin Shin Ayin, 370 lights. There's a give and a take. There's a shakla of a tire. There's an ebb and a flow. There's a rush of a shoyev. There's a shamayim and an aretz. The whole dynamic of the way that the world was created with duality is so that there should be distance between them. So that, says the Gemara inside, the ish v'isha zacha shchina shriya beinehem. The shchina daika reveals itself in the life of ish v'isha beinehem. right? In the space between them. Right? People don't understand really the beauty of that Ma'amar Chazal. It's daika beinehem that the Shechina shows up. It doesn't say alehem, right? No, the way that the Shechina reveals itself is daika through the hismazgus of the push and pull of the male and female energies. Now again, that's archetypally typological of every aspect of duality throughout the whole entire world. That's the aspect of hot and cold. That's the aspect of ultimately in the midas, chesed and gvura. You want to go further back, chachma and bina. You want to go further back, the chala, panoy, and the kav. Like we traced it back into our mentes, right? Everything that exists in the world, there's a bechina beinehem. There's beautiful shashua that's born there. That shashua is able to be brought about when there's a reality that right now I'm in shoiv, and there's a place over there called Ratzo, right? And I want to strive toward that place. When the Hastarah is b'seich Hastarah, that's a viter, a bechina of no distance, right? It's just lahepech, it's the klipa, right? It's something similar to what we learned in Torah and Beis, when we said that really B'etzem HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Mechuyev HaMetzias, that's all there is, right? What's the flip side of the spectrum is to think that this world is the Mechuyev HaMetzias. Now in a certain sense, they're right? In a certain sense, what is always will be, right? But it's a complete evus, right? It's a complete distortion of the reality. The same is true here. What we're learning about over here is, bringing it back to this topic, a person who's Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah is living in Yud-Hoveh, the klipa, right? I mean, it's like hard to say that, is living in that kind of consciousness, but on the other side. In other words, they also don't think that there's anywhere to go, right? Now, be'emes, this is so deep and nuanced. Be'emes, they're right? Because in Baki B'Shaiv, the truth is, Hineka, Kadosh Baruch Hu is already with them. But they're also wrong, because we know, and we've discussed this, especially when we had our Tzidkas HaTzadik shir, and that one shir that we really went through this, Yediyah Bechira, we've spoken about this many times. The only way to activate that consciousness in a healthy way is in the context of Baki B'Ratzeh. Right? Once I know that there's somewhere else to get, and I realize that the life that I've been living until now, gewalt, that's not the way that I want it, and I feel brokenhearted, and I do tshuva, and I want to change, that activates the reality that everything until now was Ratzon Hashem, and the consciousness of Yediyah, and everything is okay, and like the Gemara says, right? The Gemara that says that a person who does tshuva me'ava, does donis namchol v'chulei, right? That turns everything around, and that's fine. That's the way that the situation is created, so that we have arichas yamim, but it comes down into Kayla. But the person who wants to say, because he's in Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, that what he's doing is totally fine and he intends to carry on that way, it's the klipa of all klipas. Because you collapsed the whole human condition, which was necessitated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanting there to be an experience of distance, so that we have an ideal to strive for, so that we can experience the ups, not also the downs, but the ups and the downs and the ups, mountains and valleys, days and nights, summers, winters, etc., of the human experience, so that therein Ish v'Isha, in this context, interpreted in the broadest possible way, Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shechina Shruya Beinehem. It's daika in the beinehem that the Shechina is showing up. But if a person thinks that they're already there, either because they mamish are just without Kayla and think that everything is getlichkeit, everything is godliness, and they don't need to do anything other than just simply be, which is of course true on one level, but also completely false on the other level, or because they're so distant from the whole inyan of Ruchnius Bechlal that they don't even know what you're talking about. They like, what do you mean ideals? Like I should grow, I should change? Like the whole purpose of life is just to enjoy like as many physical pleasures as I possibly can and just live. Like without thinking about why I was born, where I came from, what came before me, what came after me. No. Like who says I have to think about that stuff? I'll just carry on living like a behema and I'll carry on. This is my life, right? So that's not gonna reveal any aspect of Torah or Hayra. There's no guidance. What we want to do, therefore, is to take a person out of Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah and bring them into one Hastarah. Because when the person's in one Hastarah, then, like we said, they're going to be able to feel the impulse to return. Hashem is still distant from them, but at least they're in the parsha of knowing that there's something sad about the fact that Nasa Leikater, and they feel a pain in their heart. So the way to do that is by helping the person who's so incredibly distant know that Nachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Melubash there, But that's what the Rebbe uses this lashon. I think it's mamish meduyak that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Because he says it in the negative, right? Me'achar or machma shelo hayu yodim sh'Hashem yisbarach nister sham. They need to be helped by being told, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is nister, Hashem is hidden from you, and thereby there's an aspect of sham, which I want to connect to Torah Vav, im esak shamayim, that's Ratzo+Shov, sham'ata, which we learned over there was an aspect of knowing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is distant. That there's, right, it's an amazing thing. This is what we're trying to teach the person in Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, is not telling him HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with you and you're okay. It's telling him HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with you and you're okay. You know why? Because the situation that you find yourself in right now is ideal from the standpoint of their now having been created space, so that there can be a bechina of sham. Now you begin your journey, and that's a beautiful thing. And wherever you find yourself is exactly where you're supposed to be. You couldn't be anywhere else, but you need to take steps. That's turning the Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, which is a klipa of baki b'shayv, right? Because a person thinks they're okay either in a spiritual way or in a completely non-spiritual way, but the total is the same because they're not going to move, they're not going to change. What we want to do is to provide this very nuanced messaging of, on the one hand, total compassion and embrace and validation, right, of their personhood, and not making them now look back and regret 40, 50, 60 years of their life because they feel like they wasted it. No, you have to embrace that person and tell that person you're okay. Your journey was mamish min hashamayim. Everywhere you find yourself in that. But we want to also say HaKadosh Baruch Hu is nister in your life, and because Hashem is nister, which they didn't know that prior, now you reveal a shining city on the hill, right? Now you reveal the aspect of sham. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is nister, and that reveals sham. All of a sudden, gewalt, ish v'ish azacha, shchina, right? Shruya is daika beinehem. When you have an ideal to strive for, that's what brings your life to life, right? That's what gives you the toichen hachayim. So we're not all of a sudden snapping our finger in this person's mamish, Shemer Torah mitzvahs, and has no hastaras. No, he's going to have a hastara, but it'll be one hastara. And from within the experience of the double hastara, we reveal Torah there. Let's look back inside. All of a sudden, the Torah, the Hira that was hidden in this place, is transformed into das. Because now the person wakes up, and now the person says, Gewalt, how did I fall so far? How did I get to such a place where the distance between me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so great? Now again, if the distance is too great, then it's not able to be traversed, and then there's yish. That's chas v'shalom not what we want when we deliver a message about kibbutz. Right? The whole point is that the only reason we're working with this person is because we believe that they could grow. Otherwise, right? So we don't want to chas v'shalom give them a feeling that they have to give up, that the gap is too wide. But when we do reveal a gap, and we support them in the right way, then they get excited, then they get passionate. Wow, look at how much territory there is to cover. And this is very important for new Baalei Tshuva. Can't overwhelm them. Saying you bring them into a shul and you show them the whole, hundreds and hundreds of svarim and the whole Shas Bavli Risham. Imagine a person doesn't know Aleph Beis. Oh my gosh, how are they going to begin? So they need tremendous support. Imagine the shame that a person feels. He finds Torah mitzvahs later in life, and it could be a very shameful experience. It's not my experience, but I imagine a person comes into shul, they look around, and all these little cheder are, davening with full fluency, and Rabbi Akiva is breaking his teeth, and if Rabbi Akiva had felt that the distance was insurmountable, right before the inning of the rock and the water on the rock, which gave him that, right, just a paradigm shift, then there's no Rabbi Akiva, and there's no Rabbi Shimon, and there's no this, right? There's nothing, right? It's an amazing thing. All the Torah that we're learning now that came through Rabbi Shimon, who came to the Ari and the Baal Shem, and here we are sitting by Rabbeinu HaKadosh, is only because one person went through this experience. He was Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, and then something flipped, and he realized how distant he was, but he got chizuk. He had the baki b'ratzai, but he had it supported by baki b'shayv. Then the distance is adequate to be able to do what? To string letters together. If letters are too close together, then they don't say anything. It's just a bunch of ink. If letters are too distant from one another, they also don't say anything because it's just a bunch of letters. When you have letters that are not enmeshed one within the other, that's too much shayv, and not distant too much, that's too much ratzai, but evenly spaced, then you have this thing called the human condition, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in order to make a beinehem between the ish, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem ish milchama, and the isha, the b'chin of Klal Yisrael, Knesset Yisrael, Shabbos Malkusa, so that there can be this tension where we do our best to cross the gap. That's what's being revealed through the ois of the Torah, the letters daika, with that paradigm in the life of the person who we are taking by the hand and helping out of Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, to say, no, Hashem is with you, but Hashem is Sham, Nister Sham. Okay, now you need to come into one Hastarah. Then their eyes open. And then it's a beautiful thing. Then they begin their journey. And it's healthy and balanced, and again, only possible to be facilitated by a person who has brought the Arichas Yamim into their kli. So he has both, right? The Chesed and the Gvur, the Baki B'Shayv Chesed and Baki B'Ratzei Gvur. Because the Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah has now been transformed into an awakening, into an awareness of how distant they are, but it's a supportive awareness. It's a compassionate, guided awareness. And now they're able to see the Torah. So then what happens? And again, this is the point, because if you read it stam, it sounds like, until this point, the person who's coming to guide is just giving them so much chizuk, right? That's what it sounds like. He's coming and telling them, do you know Hashem is still with you? That's what it sounds like. I'll be a pshat if you read it, right? Hashem is with you. Don't worry, you haven't fallen too far. But look what the Rebbe says. No, that's not it. That's part of it. But that's not the ultimate. The ultimate is Azaya Torah ba'atzma moichicha isam. No, there's haichacha. Bibechinas hairaisam achrezes kamayu, like the Zohar Kadosh says. The Torah announces before a person who's in this situation, Ad masai psaim tehavu pesi. Until when? Psaim means fools. Tehavu pesi, will you adore folly? When will you wake up? When will you realize poison is poison? Enough, die. Stop, like Rav Kook says. Stop being cruel to yourself. Because the truth is that the Torah is constantly crying out, and the Torah is constantly begging, and the Torah is constantly adjourning us to move and to grow and to integrate the Torah into our lives. Always. The Torah calls out, wailing. Ad masai psaim tehavu, like the pasuk says in Mishlei. The Torah is always crying out. Chol yom yom yotzei me'achayrev, right? Oilem, oiloi labrios me'albono shel Torah. That's why my elbow's been hurting me. Elbono. Gewalt. It's doing much better, Baruch Hashem. It's a crazy thing. Look what you did. You just came into the room and already we're coming with puns. So me'albono shel Torah, right? Or Shuvu banim shoivavim, right? The Torah HaKadosh calls out always. But a person doesn't hear the Torah calling out, which is the b'china of Baki B'Ratzei, which is the b'china of Sham, right? And that's why the Torah is given on a mountain, and a mountain that we are not allowed to climb. That's the whole idiom. We learned that before, right? There has to be the tension between I want to get to the top of the mountain and I have to stand behind the fence. Like, that's the Jewish experience. That's exactly it. That's the distance that's beautifully created, where there's a push and a pull, there's an ebb and a flow, there's a shakla and a tarya. So the Torah is mamash calling us all the time. However, a person is also likely, on account of the doubled over Hastarah, to simply lose touch with the impulse of growth and not to feel like there's any ideal to strive for. And on the one hand, that might feel very freeing, because the Jewish anxiety of feeling like we have the world on our shoulders and we have everything to accomplish and we have to move and move and move and move and move might not be part of that person's life. But whatever you think you gain, you're going to lose immensely by not having an impulse toward self-development, self-revelation, self-expansion, evolution. And a person will be 89 years old with the consciousness of a 15-year-old, and nothing will have changed at all. At all. Shum davar. Not in their values, not in their ideals, not in their way of thinking, nothing. But what a shame. What a shame. And the person will say, I had such a great life. I mean, did you? What, because what? Because of how many steaks you managed to devour over the course of decades and decades. I'm saying you don't know what good or bad is. It's not a good life. A good life is a life of work, of revelation, of mastery, of gilui, and along with that, of bittul, and of reliance on a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and fully revealing, the greatness that is implicit in the Tzadam Elokim. That's a good life. In order to do that, so then there's a little bit of anxiety, there's a little bit of tension. But the tension doesn't mean that I live a life of misery, because again, I'm anchored in Baki B'Shayv. But I don't allow the Shayv to take over so much that I lose touch with the ideal. I need my Baki B'Ratzai, Baki B'Shayv. These two things need to go hand in hand. However, when a person is in the Bechina of Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah, so then what's going to happen is they completely lose touch with the voice of the Torah that's giving them Musar, right? That's calling them up the mountain. However, once the Hastarahs flip, and it moves from being Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah to one Hastarah or to no Hastarah, and all of a sudden it's mamish clear to them, oh my goodness, forget Nasa L'Keheter, I don't want to live like this anymore. All of a sudden, this person who has the das to be able to guide someone in an appropriate way, remember, das is the conjugation between Das, Chachma and Bina, which itself is the root for Chesed and Gvura, right? Which is the Ar and the Kayla. L'man yarech yamim al mamlachte. Das. When a bar das is helping people in a balanced way, not too much Ratzai that they get disengaged from Shayv, but not too much Shayv that they get disengaged from Ratzai. Das, that's what das is, right? It's this balanced way, the externalization of Keser, Nachal, Naviyam, Kar Chachma, which is where Rabbi Nachman is drawing all of his incredibly, mind-blowingly elevated Giluyim from that place of Keser. So then, on account of Das, the Hastarahs flip, Nasa Mehem Torah. Now that Torah has been created, as I take it, Kishanasa Mehem Torah, the minute that the Tzirufim are flipped back around and the person wakes up and says, holy moly, there really is a thing called Shabbos. Wow. And my whole life I wasn't thinking about it. Because I grew up completely, let's say disengaged religiously. And it wasn't like a thing. It's not like, I feel guilty. Shabbos is Saturday. Like what? And then all of a sudden, gently, a person is guided into realizing, no, it really is a thing. And it doesnn't matter whether your parents think it's a thing, or your grandparents thought it's a thing, or even maybe today, I don't know if it's possible, probably, great-great-grandparents thought it's a thing. It does not matter. And then, the Torah is starting to speak to you. The Torah is starting to say, yes, Shabbos matters. Yes, Shabbos matters. Kashrus matters. Yeah, there's a thing called kashrus. Yeah, it might not have been on a person's radar. Now it's on a person's radar. Not in a depressive way, like how bad I am, but in a way that there's an ideal to strive for. Tznius matters, Tznius matters. I want to say something. I don't like saying bad things. But it's just something that I noticed, and somebody has to say something. I don't know if this will reach the people it needs to reach. But I noticed this thing that's happening, which pains me tremendously, because they're some of my good friends. Maybe, I don't know, whoever will hear this and send it to them. I'm too ashamed to say something. And who am I to say something? But something has to be said. That in spiritualistic circles, of chevra who are unzer chevra, guys who grew up from and are still from and very connected to the svarim of the tzaddikim and learning Chassidus and love to sit in Fabring. I've noticed just from looking at people's WhatsApp statuses, which is probably never a good thing to do, but who knows, that what's happening both in Eretz Yisrael and I just saw it now in America, is that there are groups of men and women who are sitting around the kumzitzin and singing together from people. It's a new thing. And the women are singing. I don't know what that is. I don't know what the heter is. I don't know. I don't know what that is, but I guarantee one thing. It is not holy. That is not holy. It might feel holy because you're singing Shari Shemayim Sach. It is a chilul of everything holy and everything pure. Because there's a thing called Kol Isha. And there's a thing called parameters, right, of separation. And there's a thing called Kedusha, that B'chol Makam Shata Moitze Geder Erva Shamate Moitze Kedusha. It is impossible to be able to genuinely bring oneself to Kedusha if they're literally sitting in an environment that is Meechal Kedusha and Meechal Kedoshim to you. So again, there's some of my closest, dearest people who I love and adore. In my opinion, this is the wrong thing. It's the wrong thing. It's not right. And I think that they know that. I think they already know that. Somehow, culturally, things have shifted. And this is precisely what the system, which is against Hasidus, was worried would happen. And you know something? Yeah, sometimes things get to an extreme. And when we lean way too much into the wanting to get close to Hashem, which is valuable and real and holy and sweet and dear and precious, so much so that simple basics of halacha go out the window, in that very context, in my opinion, it's mamash a shvir sakelim noira she'en kamayu, that is only going to lead chas v'shalom to places that are going to bring us further away from Hashem and not closer to being able to integrate the light of the tzaddikim into our lives in a holy way. Adkan just had to say something, so I said something.
Is that not as a knockoff, a spill-off from all these alternative things going on with these retreats and Lord knows? Is that just not the next level of that?
It's part of it. It's part of it. I think it is. I think it actually began with, maybe what was it? If run properly, would have been a good idea, And again, it's nobody's fault. It's just the nature of the system and the way things are set up. That Nebuch, people have to go to such an extreme in order to react against what they feel is a system that has no space for them. In addition to, there's another part of the problem. There are a lot of older singles, right? Who just don't know what to do. Don't have a sense of community because the community doesn't really make space for individuals who aren't in a particular circumstance. So what do? They all group together, and then it becomes a big group of friends. And they're from people. They mamish want. They're from Yidden. They want spirituality and they want to be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What it ends up is these huge single retreats. You're right. It is a spill off from that in the forest, which they do these huge festivals. Men and women, tents all over the place, no oversight in terms of how things are being run, mixed dancing, things like that. Now again, if it wasn't in Unzra, like my community, what can I do? There are people, but this is creeping in such a way that the influence and spill over into the regular sort of more mainstream kind of approach, both from the optic standpoint that it turns people off from genuine relationship with the tzaddikim because it's the biggest raya to people in their minds of everything they were afraid of. That's but that's secondary, right? The point is that people are being drawn into something that I feel mamish is antithetical to Yiddishkeit. And I care about Yiddishkeit, I care about Kedusha, I care about health. And this is healthy, this is not. It's just not, right? Not in the way of Kedusha and Torah. So
I saw just yesterday, I was watching a video of the Son Rebbe recently, and he was going crazy about what's going on with Chassidus. Like he says, we're now in a situation, as you said, that it's questionable the Kedusha element because of, I'm not saying the dancing and the music and that it's become such a, it's always questionable.
That's right. That's right. So we want, again, this is the message of the whole Likutei. We want Kayla. Because we want health and happiness. That's meaning that's the end of the sentence. It's just because this is what God said, Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us, He knows what's good for us. He knows the tragedies and the angst and the pain that can be caused by allowing certain boundaries to slip, and then before you know it, we end up in places which are just Hashem knows. Hashem knows. He knows what it means, to be able to serve Him in the appropriate way, and that's what we want. So again, it's like any person who comes to say anything, who are you to say you're perfect? No, I'm definitely not. I have the things that I need to work on too. But Daika in that spirit to say, hey, I'll be honest about the things I need to work on, but you know what I'm saying? Let's all do this together, right? It's not coming from a place of I'm looking down. I'm not. I'm looking up at HaKadosh Baruch Hu with tear-filled eyes and saying, Kayla. You want that your kindlech should be in the right way, So sometimes the line has to be held, and this is my little humble macha on a personal level with tremendous love and respect and friendship. Okay. So this is the nakuda that we're saying over here. We want Kayla, but all of a sudden the Torah, and all of a sudden it's yes, I brought that as an example, right? Yeah, Kol Isha, it just stopped being a thing. Because who cares? That's what we do every Thursday night. We get together with a bunch of girls in skirts, from seminary, and everybody's sitting around and we're singing. Mamash used to see how errands they are when they sing. Mamash with tvekas on their face, and what in the world is going on here, right? So, but it stops mattering because Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah. Nasa l'gater. All of a sudden, the year of Shir, let's say, and they start to think, wait a second, that's really not okay. Not only is it not holy and not useful, it's not okay. But I really struggle with it because I've become accustomed to it. Okay, great. Welcome to Avodas Hashem. Now there's a gap. There's an ideal. Here's where you are. That's the ideal. We have to work to strive toward it. Sometimes you'll be successful. Sometimes you won't be successful. But it's in that space, right? That space is created when the Hastarahs are nisgale, and the Meila, nimtza, all of a sudden there is revealed this aspect of Asham, Torah, Admasai Psayim Te'avu Pesi. And this is pshat in the pasuk Pia Pascha B'Chachma. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Shal Yidei Chachma V'Das Hanisker La'el, through the Chachma, because that's what it begins with first, is the Bechina of Baki B'Shoiv. That's the aspect of Chachma, which is the tzad of Yamin, which is the tzad of Chesed, which is the revelation of expansivity. But then, as a result of Bina Chachma V'Das, it comes down into Das HaNisker La'el. Shal Yideze Megalan Hastarahs Va'oisamei Torah K'Nisker La'el. Then you reveal the Hastarahs, and then Torah is there. Al Yideze Pia Pascha. B'Chachma Pia Pascha. When you can engage a person in the appropriate way with love, compassion, understanding, but also guidance. Because imagine if somebody else would go to these groups and just give them tons of chizuk and tell them, no, you're perfect, you're okay, you're so sweet, this is so holy. It, again, on one level it's beautiful, but guess what won't happen? They won't stop. Right? What you want to happen will not happen. They're not likely to happen. It has to be a blend of both. I think, again, just going back to it, like sometimes in our generation, as a reaction to the way that parenting was perhaps in the previous generation, some people today want to go all the way to the other extreme. Our parents were way too strict with us, and so we're going to let our kids do everything. That's not either mahalach, right? The problem that your parents had was not that they were too strict. The problem was they were only strict. Right? So by going to the opposite extreme, you're just replicating their mistake on the other side of the spectrum. That's not either likely to be healthy. Balance. Why can't people get this? Like, why? Balance. It's not so complicated. You need, what's the word? Well, midas too. But you need balance and both. Okay? You need both. Obviously, you need both. So yes, it's with chachma, but it's also with das. And if it's with das, then you have both. Then your children are growing up with a healthy sense of self because you just shower them with unconditional adoration and love, and you drill that into them. And then on the other hand, they're also looking to you for values. They're looking to you for ideals. They're looking to you to know what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad. Kids need that. If they don't have that, it's chaos. It's chaos, and they're going to end up with just as many problems as the kids who only grow up with boundaries and no love and no acceptance. That's why the Rebbe is so healthy. The Rebbe says you need both. You need both. 1 second. I know you have something to say. Just 1 second. Just want to finish to the end. But please hold it, okay? Because I'm going to come to you in a second. Nimsa says the Heilige Rebbe, Sha'al Yedei Eisek HaTorah, that by virtue of just coming back to ourselves, when we ourselves are engaged in this journey and we're learning Torah in the appropriate way, where there's a Beinehem, and there's a Ish, and there's a Isha, and we're striving to reach HaKadosh Baruch Hu's arms, that through that we're drawing down Harichas Yamim into our Malchus, that through this we're drawing down the vitality into our Yamim, into our Midas, into our days, into our measurements, into our vessels. And that produces das, because again, Arichas Yamim is the Bechina of Chachma, and Yamim Midas is the Bechina of Bina, right? Because that's the vessel, and that produces das. Now the Rebbe uses it metaphorically, right? Because he said, Einam Etzle, they're not next to him. Over here, the Rebbe says he means metaphorically. You're able to reach even people who are incredibly distant. You'll always know the right thing to say. You'll be able to use your seichel. What do they need right now? Do they need the kirva? All right, which the Bechina, I mean, the Gemara already says this, right? La'olam yehei yemin mekareves small daicha. And I heard from Matasio Solomon, right, he has this beautiful thing that if you take a person and you hold one side of them and you pull them close and the other side you push, you turn them around. Right? And that's the way to turn people metaphorically, is you don't actually want to just turn them around away from you, but you want to turn people around as like this, right? Yamin mekarev and small daicha. When you do that, then you can reach even the people who are very far away, even those people who are incredibly distant, who are in the Hastarah Sheb'Toch Ha'Hastarah. You can help them out by giving them the support in the moment, but also giving them an ideal to strive for and encouraging them to traverse that boundary, to enable themselves to experience the glowing light of the Shekhinah that is Shoyreh Beineihem, in the space in between.
Also, there is we know normally in halacha we're speaking about also about koiche de hetero and the Esek Torah enables us to find the koiche de hetero.
That's right.
But how do we deal in an Indian such as, for example, Kol Isha, which is also about siyag, because we're also told to do a fence. So when it comes to doing fences, how do we bring that concept of koiche of showing not only lokan but until where you can go?
Yeah, and this is the tension. We've spoken about this in the past also, about how halacha itself is designed as a breathing, almost flexible system, but itself within boundaries, right? So in other words, Af echad is not going to say that, oh, you know how I know he's such a big paisek? Because he mattered eating on Yom Kippur. He's the greatest paisek in the world. He says you can mamash be Meechal on Shabbos, you could drive to Shul on Shabbos. What godliness? That's not godliness, it's a shtiyot. Anybody in the world can come around and start writing a Torah for. So koicha de Torah adav is a very delicate thing when you're dealing with Yorei Shemayim, who have kol Torah kula in their mind, who are able to be able to prove either by virtue of them having a verified tradition that they themselves brought and were able to find in a pasuk or in a right, or through their reasoning, they're able to be oiker harim and demonstrate soundly. So we say gevalt koicha de Torah adav, right? That. But koicha de Torah adav doesn't mean that we stop holding clear lines, right, that have been held in our Messiah for thousands of years and have gotten us to where we are today, where all of a sudden we're gonna start being metashdesh tagvulot, especially in areas of kedusha where the whole point is the siyag. That's the whole point. So it's not koicha de Torah. Now, if, and again, I'm not issuing any kind of psak, if there was an extenuating circumstance where a person absolutely had to hear Kol Isha, even though Kol Isha Erva, you'd have to bring it to a paisek, and you have to figure out if a person's going to...
The people try to use the 3-day
which says?
Which permitted after the war, there was one youth movement that he gave the Bosnians to sing together, because he said Trey Ko said in Mishmor.
Things like that, right? Things like that. Right, but he didn't give that psak to everybody, right? That's exactly, things like that. So a posek, right, who you know is a person who's oisgalden, a person who's Yorei Shemayim, a person who is saturated with the aura of the Messiah. They always find themselves on the gvul where they have to mediate between new realities, but they feel the weight and the gravity of 2,000 years of Torah scholarship on their shoulders, that they're not flippantly just saying, oh, this is okay, that's okay. Oh, you better go to a posek who's a Yorei Shemayim. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a Yiddishkeit that might be much easier, but also might untether you from the Bechina Baki V'Shayv that was intended to be able to help you develop and evolve. And so again, I just want to make clarity. I want to be Melamed Zchus. The first limud zchus is that the videos that I saw were just huge families of siblings. Okay, I happen to know that's not the case, but let's say that they're all siblings, and that's that. Or maybe it was AI generated. I can think of a bunch of limudei zchus. One of the limudei zchus is that they all went to a major paisik who gave them a heter for whatever absurd reason, I don't know, but whatever extenuating circumstance, I have no idea, that they're allowed to do such a thing repeatedly and, with, I don't know. Okay, let's say that was the case. Seder, I'm saying, you went to, but you realize, even the fact that you ask a shaila demonstrates that you feel the tension. Right? That's what a shaila means. A shaila means you're coming with tut stadim, but you have to have tut stadim. Stam to go ahead and to do viduvils, right? And stam, like the world is a free-for-all. You might have good shoiv, hineka. You might feel very connected. But the point here is not that we want to feel connected. The point here is that we want the actual MS, because you're only going to live one time in this lifetime. And we're not going to be here forever. We're here for a very particular mission. We are not here to feel good, because there are much, much better feelings that I can have as a Christian or something else, right? If that's the path that I'm following, than to be a committed Orthodox Jew, no matter how comfortable I make it, right? So again, a person always has to keep themselves in check and say, where do I want to be? And why? What are my motivations? What am I looking for? And that's why, again, It is out of, and with this will end, it is out of, from my perspective, a deep, deep willingness to see my friends and to see our community and to see our nation and to see all of humanity ultimately in its healthiest, most activated, actualized, elevated, clear, and ultimately therefore happy, self-satisfied, content, miyushav way that I would ever say such a thing. Right? Not because I'm trying to give Moshe, say, oh, you guys are so terrible, how can you be doing such a terrible thing? And no, because I actually think your lives will be a whole lot better if you could avoid the dynamics that come along with breaching a boundary that Klal Yisrael has held for thousands of years, which is a siyag for the purpose of heading off and avoiding a lot of unpleasantness that it begins with a kumzitz because you're together, and all of a sudden what happens then? So you say, no, it's singles. Okay, you want to have a singles event, but that itself needs to be done in an appropriate way because there's a fine line, you'll forgive my lashon, between a singles event and something else, okay? Because they say, oh, it's a singles event. Yeah, but it's an orgy. No, but it's a singles event. You know what I'm saying? No, but you forgive me. You understand? That's also a singles event. So I'm not saying this is that. But once a person crosses a little boundary, there's a reason things are the way they are. There's a reason things are the way they are, and it's for our own benefit. That's the point. That's the flip, is switching from, on the one hand, thinking that, oh, Hashem is trying to impose things on me, and then flipping that entire thing to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu literally coded me. He coded me. He's the coder, right? He created this whole program. He knows what I want. Forget about what he wants. He only wants it because he knows that it's be'emes what my neshama wants, and the only way that my neshama will be at peace. Because what does it help to have a kumzitz with all the ladies in town if the next morning I wake up feeling unpleasant about that? Because there is deep down this niggling sense to say, this is, they know it. They know it like I know it. They know it like I know. I'm sure that if I would have the courage to reach out to one of them, if I didn't feel that it would destroy them and give them the feeling that somehow I don't love them, and you know, I haven't done that because it's very delicate, and I really adore these people, and if they hear it in an indirect way, maybe that will help them. I don't know. Definitely not going to send this to them, but you know, if it goes around, then maybe somehow gets to them. I have no idea. I'm doing my ishtadlos. But the only reason that I would ever say that is because I love them so much that I want them to live a life of health and a life of balance and to do things in the appropriate way, not for the Torah, but the Torah is the way it is because the Torah wants us to be able to live in the most activated, settled way that we possibly can. If all we ever gave was chizuk, nobody will ever change, ever. There needs to be chizuk, and there needs to also be the musar aspect. There needs to be baki b'shayv, and it's very delicate and gentle to be a big bucky and knowing how to intertwine these two things to maintain both. That's what the Rebbe is giving us, and that's what we hope people like us who are connected to the Rebbe are able to carry this energy onward and to be able to help people not just feel okay as they are, but to help them move, not just to make them feel like they have to move, but to also make them feel okay as they are. We're all growing, we're all on a journey. Each of us have things to work on as individuals, as a community, and we're getting closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this itself is part of the journey. We have to go there to come here, but let's get there. All right, let's get to the top of the mountain together. B'siyat Shema. Yes, you're correct. You're going to have an amazing, phenomenal day up ahead.
אני הבן ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני